What's up, Brogurts, and welcome to the ShiftEQ.Podcast with Alan K. This is episode 5, the Hard 75 review with my friend Ben Samuels. Ben is a podcaster, he's an entrepreneur, and his entire body of work revolves around serving those who are underserved and also providing just a beacon of light for those who otherwise don't have a voice for themselves. I wanted to highlight this video, or at least highlight this episode, because there's a lot of people making these transformational changes. New year, new me. They try to find like a program and kind of ride the hard coattails into creating a lifestyle change. In this episode, we talk a lot about the ramifications of what that may or may not be, if 75 hard is actually effective and it's actually worth it, and the future of what's going to end up happening with 75 hard. Stay tuned for this one, guys, because there's going to be more to be added to this. Also, with that being said, this season is going to take a small pivot. The next 9 or so weeks are going to be dedicated around my training, as well as I have a birthday next week where I'm not going to actually be dropping an episode for this week. So for at least for right now, the ShiftEQ podcast is going to go on pause with talking with guests. From here on out until May 14th, it is gonna be about my training, the insights, a lot of it, and there's gonna be more to be added to that later. But I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Hope you guys keep tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, all those beautiful things. Keep the channel growing, and I love you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in.
I got you. Well, let's get started on this. We originally been talking about 75 hard a lot lately, and you are currently in what day of 75 hard are you in right now?
So I decided to take 75 hard and make it like 103 hard because I'm on day 5 of attempt 3. And so, so this is my third attempt, and each time, so I've failed twice now, and each time that I've failed, I picked up right on day 1 the following day. And so I've already, I started this excursion on January 3rd, I believe it was your 2nd or 3rd, and I'm on, like I said, I'm on attempt 3, day 5.
Okay. And then to be real clear for our listeners, I'm just going to read off a couple of the things that 75 hard entails. And we'll go from there, right? So first off, you got to follow a diet. You got to have 2 45-minute workouts, with one of the workouts being outside. You can't have any alcohol or any kind of a cheat meal. You have to take a progress pic every single day. You have to drink 1 gallon of water, and then you have to read 10 pages of a book. And there is absolutely no audiobooks, and there's absolutely zero compromise. And if you do happen to fail at one of those tasks, like you just demonstrated yourself, you have to go all the way back to day 1 and start all over again. And for what you just outlined, you're on attempt number 3, and you started this, this whole thing. For you, since you said you started around January 2nd, January 3rd, what made you originally want to start 75 hard? And then can you just talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a backbone, sort of a baseline, I think you and I talked a little bit offline about this, but I think it's really important to mention that, these programs like 75 hard are really not engineered to take someone from, a sedentary, lackadaisical lifestyle and catalyze them into, going 100 miles an hour. I think that sort of starting from zero and trying to do everything at once is a recipe for failure, in the sense that on day 76 or day 80, if you do in fact complete the challenge, you may revert back to those old patterns. And so I think that's sort of an important distinction, in the sense that, one of the reasons that I picked this up is really simple. I've started to become more focused on telling my story and telling the people that I follow and follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn about what I've got going on. And this was one of the ways that I wanted to create some content and hold myself accountable to a regimen and to a schedule. In my day-to-day prior to to this experiment, prior to 75 hard, I was working out 5-6 days a week, drinking probably not a gallon of water a day, but drinking, enough water to feel healthy, was staying on a diet. So, and I read excessive amount. And so there weren't a lot of monumental shifts that I was going to have to take to undertake this. I think the biggest thing for me was the commitment to the process of doing these things every single day. And the reason I say it that way is because one of the things that, again, you and I talked about a little bit offline, maybe a few weeks ago, was the simple fact of, if you only drink 3/4 of a gallon a day, can you just check the box and keep going? Because the effort was there and you really tried hard. Or if you're traveling for one day and you can't get the second outdoor workout in, are you able to just I didn't get it done that day, but it's okay. I'm trying my best. And I think the distinction with a challenge like this is that it is a zero-sum game. It is a zero-sum. You either complete it to its 100% or not. And I don't think that sort of binary success fail metric is necessarily healthy. Again, going back to what I said before, if you're trying to turn a 90-degree angle and change your life. Does that sort of make sense?
It does. I kind of want to take this back real quick. Andy Frisell, the one of the CEOs of First Form, the supplement brand, he's the one that came up with 75 Hard. And he's been on the air repeatedly talking about, it's not about exactly creating a complete lifestyle change. It's about creating a mindset change, with regards to holding yourself to a higher standard than your normal, improving on areas that he would argue, and I would also argue, that are areas that majority of people could use improving on. And so I agree with you in the sense of, if we were to take it as a complete lifestyle change, it could definitely be disastrous, right? But because like you said, there's a lot of those human standards and human things that we do with regards to there are times we just can't get that evening workout in. I live in California, Southern California, next to the beach. Really grateful. It's kind of hard not to get an outdoor workout in at some point or another, right? But if someone that's living in Boston, someone that's living in New York, let's say in the middle of a blizzard or something like that, then yeah, absolutely. You talked a lot about the zero-sum game part. Can you talk kind of elaborate what you mean by zero sum, just for the listeners, and just so we, when we continue to use this, we know what we're talking about when we're saying zero sum.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in life we get caught up in defining success in the ways that popular culture and the people above us, or the people that we admire, or the people that we follow on social media tell us how to define success. I think it's a really important element of life to be able to sort of modulate what success means to you on a very granular level, in the sense that, if you are a salesperson and you're making cold calls, is the win getting a sale, or is the win just simply picking up the phone and making the effort and putting in the calls and doing your best on every call that you have? Or is the win, the promotion, or is the win finding the sweet spot of, hey, if I work 5.5 hours a day, I can support my family, have a great life, but I also get to spend time with my family. I could work 11 hours a day and make substantively more income. But what does the success mean to me? And I think that life gives you that sort of optionality to create what is success to me. And there's no right or wrong. There's no answer to that question. When you look at a program like this, when you look at a 75 Hard, success is explicitly defined. Success is doing every single one of these tasks for 75 days in a row. There is no ambiguity. There is no leeway. There is no, like I said, there is no, hey, I missed one of these tasks one of these days. That means you failed. There is a binary in the sense of you either fail or you succeed. That there is no in between. It's one of the two. In life, you can create success, again, going back to, you can form that however you feel is appropriate for your own situation. In a situation like this, you don't have that optionality. You have failed if you do not complete the task at hand. And I think that's a really important distinction. And again, that can be a somewhat unhealthy mindset to bring into day-to-day life, right? If you become regimented to the point where you are beating yourself up for failing, but the only reason that you're failing is because you have decided to define that action as failure, right? you can lead yourself in a pretty dark path. And I think that's one of the things that, talking about working out for a minute, because I know that's something that you're passionate about, or talking about dieting, moving into that realm, body dysmorphia is a major problem. And it's not just a major problem for people that are out of shape or need to change their life. It's, there are days where I look in the mirror and I go to the gym. I mean, right now I'm going to the gym 7 days a week on top of, 7 other workouts outside of every single day. But even prior to that, going back, like I said, I was working out 5-6 days a week. And so I'm used to, looking in the mirror, and there are plenty of times where I looked in the mirror and I'm just like, what have I been doing? But then I'll go to the gym the next day and I'm repping, more weight than I was the prior week. And so again, I think it's important to sort of give yourself the space to, I lost my train of thought there a little bit. Let me come back. So going back to the body dysmorphia, I think that it's a one of the things that people struggle with, because what is the success? Is the success what you're looking at in the mirror and the tangible progress, or is the success, hey, I was repping 50s on flat bench last week and I'm doing 55s this week, and if you're right, and so I think that when you're playing the mental game, you can get really tripped up. And so I think that to wrap this up, I think that these programs are really meant to fortify that mental. It's between the ears. It's the fortifying, hey, if I want to do these 10 tasks for 75 days in a row, I can get it done. And I think the carry forward I think the win for me is I got it done. The check mark of I was able to commit to myself to get this done, and I did it. Move on to the next thing.
Right. So I really want to, I love what you're saying here. First of all, the one being about what success is and the metric is for what successful is or isn't. And that is different for every single person. But this program specifically doesn't have really that measure. It's either you do or you don't, right? Which again, I think is great, right? You talked about the body dysmorphia. And I remember one of the more interesting statistics that I found recently. This Ohio research company did a survey on over 200 professional bodybuilders, men and women, and found out that over 50 of them suffer from muscle dysmorphia, which is a offset of body dysmorphia, right? And it's crazy because on the outside looking in, especially with, obesity rates being as high as they are, it's kind of hard, it's kind of funny because we'll look at a six pack and be like, wait, why does that guy feel insecure about his body? Why is this, why is it this guy with this chiseled 8-pack insecure, feel like he needs to do more supplements, feels terrible about himself? But why is it people like Jack Black has the biggest gut in the world and they're still happy with their body, And it's exactly what you're talking about, where it is, what is it that we see in the mirror, view as a success, and then carry on to the rest of our lives? And where do we carry on to that mindset and apply there on out? And I definitely love what you're saying with that. Now, with all those things being said, you did harp on another topic and another issue that I feel like is I don't want to say a problem, but the biggest challenge of 75 Hard, which is people take this totality route, the zero-sum game that you're talking about. It's either you do or you don't. And when you got something, right, even though like a diet, like we say follow a diet, but the average person eats 3 meals a day, right? So I would argue that's not one task. That's 3 different tasks, 4 different tasks. 2 different workouts, that's 2 different workouts, right? No alcohol or cheat meal. Like, let's say you eat a cheat meal every single day. Let's say you have 2 drinks every single night, right? So those, I would argue, are 2 or 3 different tasks in and of itself. When we put it, into that kind of an outline or that kind of a draw, I can see where, based on what people normally do for their baseline, where it's completely challenging and damn near, I don't want to say not sustainable, but it is as impossible to get based on, our psychology, our emotions, and our routines that are attached to what we are already eating or already working out or not working out. You said that, it was easy for you to transfer over, but I guess in your experience with this now, can you see where that zero-sum game could be a challenge to a lot of people who weren't used to already something like this?
Absolutely, Alan, and I really appreciate you framing it that way, because one of the things I wanted to talk about is here's how you turn 75 hard into one task. And arguably, I think this is the key to life in a lot of ways. You make a plan, you execute the plan. And what I mean by that is the night before, I have an idea of what my schedule is going to be like. If, there's not every single day where, so I happen to wake up early. So I happen to have a little bit more time in the day to like get that extra workout in or what have you. But even so generally my workout starts around 4:45 a.m. I'm in there between, until somewhere between 6 and 6:15. And my day gets started from there. And so I get to like check off that first workout very, very early, which is, so that's one of the examples of the advantages there. But going back to the planning. So, the night before I plan my day, I decide when the workouts are going to be depending on the meetings I have and the other things I've got going on. If I have my meals already prepped for the day, that's a check mark. If I don't have a meal prepped and I schedule the meals that I'm going to have, so I know when I'm going to have food. So I'm not caught in the car with no food. If I'm going to be driving an hour to a meeting, I make sure to have my water with me. So I'm staying on schedule. So I respect and I believe what you're saying. And I think that there's a lot of people listening to this that will believe sort of the, 75 hard can be broken into 28 different tasks. But at the end of the day, it's really just one. It's the right. Planning of putting all the elements together and then it's executing the plan. Now that sounds overly simplistic, but here's the advantage. I think a lot of people get caught up in sort of this paralysis by analysis of, oh my God, how am I going to do this? It's insurmountable. There's too much effort. And if you can get over that hump, if you can plan your day, you can get over the, oh my God, I can't do this. Now it's just focused on every single day you wake up. Now you just have to do the actions. Now you just have to do the stuff.
Right.
And I think it's substantively easier to wake up and do the thing when you have a plan of from 4:45 to 6:15, I'm in the gym. From 6:15 to 6:45, I'm eating, I'm showering, and I'm reading 10 pages in a book. By noon, I need to have half a gallon of water, down. So you have the metrics so that you can create the roadmap. If I were to wake up every day at 4:30 and be like, okay, how am I going to get this done today? I don't know where I'd start.
Right. You know what? And that actually brings me to my next point. I looked at the 3 most common problems for which people end up failing this entire 75 hour program. And the 3 things. First one, like you're saying, it's mindset. The first one is mindset. I want to highlight this because what a lot of people do when they go into diets, when they go into workout plans, like exactly what you say is, oh my God, I can't do this. They stress out about it. And instead of even taking that first step to potentially doing something about it, you just develop this resistance mindset, which naturally is going to have you find reasons to not do it, find reasons as to why you can't do it. So that's the first thing, exactly what you just said. I love it. Understand if you have that mindset, work on it. A lot of people do. We're creatures of habit, creatures of routine. And therefore, if you want to create an entire lifestyle change, it's natural to resist it. Just understand, accept that resistance and find out where that resistance comes from to work through it. I love what you said. Second one, which kind of be tied to the first one. You stress each task, exactly what you just said, right? I love what you're saying with regards to planning ahead. Because if you can plan your workout ahead, if you could plan your meals out ahead and exactly how you just, I love this conversation with you right now. So if you could plan out the workouts, if you could plan out the meals, then, that's something that you don't have to think about. And it's crazy on, the amount of time that we take to eat, the amount of time we take to work out. But if we just plan it for the 10 minutes, for the night before, when we're going to do it and what activities we're going to do in the interval, it literally takes zero thought. This is what we're going to do. And then all of a sudden becomes second nature. And then the last thing is the unrealisticness, the sustainability. We talk about the whole, I can't drink this much water. I can't work out this much because I never have. But again, we're going to talk, like we're saying, the mindset, if you develop that resistance, you start with that resistance, you have to work through it because it's not only the workouts, it's not only the drinking the water or the eating right. There's other areas in our lives for which we resist naturally. And instead of doing anything about it, we scurry away from it, even though we know that those things benefit us. And so I definitely appreciate that you've been able to do that. Now, since this is your third third cycle through.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about it.
Right. So first of all, I don't want to just, talk about the negative things and things like that. But I definitely want to bring out the positives, even though you're not as far into this as you would like. What are some highlights and positives that you've had of this experience so far?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for some context, the first run, like I said, I think it started around January 2nd or so. I failed on day 4 or 5, and it was just simple. I had spaced out. I had forgotten to drink enough water, and so it was like 10:30 at night, and I'd only had about 6, I think it was like 0.6 gallons of water, and so I fell short. Had to start again. Arguably, actually, not even arguably, definitively, the second one was even more brutal. So this was just about a week ago, or I guess 6 days ago, because I'm on day 5 now. So about 6 days ago, I'm sitting in a meeting in downtown, with some folks. We're talking about a deal that I'm working on, and I just absentmindedly, I was hungry. I absentmindedly reached to the center of the table and picked up a mini Twix bar and ate it without even thinking about it. Didn't even register that I had it until later in the day when I was thinking through what I had for the day, when I was about to check the follow the diet, and it just like pinged in my brain, like, man, you had a fun size Twix, like game over. So here's the worst part about it, Alan. If we can talk about it for 2 seconds here, the worst part about it is in the app. So you fail one day, right? And you failed. So in the app, you click the I failed. Andy Frisella, who's a pretty big dude, he's pretty ripped. He's got this face. He like looks at you like like you're mean mugging somebody. He comes up on the screen. He's mean mugging you, and it says you failed. Are you sure? And you have to confirm I failed. You have to write in I failed.
Oh,
and then
wow!
And then it goes to the next screen, and it says, "Are you committed to starting over?" Press OK if you are, and then you go back and it starts on day 1. Here's the worst part, Alan. And actually, let me show you. Let me pull it up as I'm doing this, in case we make some video content. The worst part about it is that the app, and I haven't deleted them. It's an option to delete them, but in the app, it shows you the fail. These are the failed attempts. This one, these 2 on the top of the screen. Are the failed attempts. So if I were to fail again, there'd be a third journal of failed attempts. This is the counter. So I'm only, like it says, I'm only on day.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
And so like you have to see right above the counter that you're currently on, you have to see the failed attempts.
Right.
Yeah. So going back to some of the takeaways, really I think it's the things that we're talking about here. One of the things that I think, let me answer it this way. I think that by and large, a lot of people have an issue with, for some reason, we like to make life substantively harder on ourselves. And what I mean by that is, so like meal prepping is a terrible process. It's burdensome. It takes a lot of thought. It's a pain in the ass. It's not fun. I don't.
Well, that's if you think of it that way. I agree.
Well, okay. So yes, it's all about mindset, and you're right. You can train yourself into just like ignoring the things that I said. But like I would contend that spending all day Sunday, every single day is not the. Here, let me say it this way. You're right. Let me say it this way. Spending all day Sunday cooking is not necessarily the thing that I would necessarily choose if I had my druthers. Now, there's a payoff because of the result, but it's not necessarily like the thing I would choose to spend my time doing. The reason I say it that way is because if you do it on a weekly basis, here's one of the things that I just learned, and you might look at me like side-eyed, like I've been doing that for years, like welcome to the club, or this might actually help you as well. I just learned how substantively easier it is to prep. So when you're meal prepping, a go-to protein, I think for everybody, or at least certainly for me, is chicken. Chicken is like the easiest thing ever. I didn't realize how much easier it is to prep chicken if you shred it beforehand. And so I started shredding my chicken and then throwing it in the air fryer. So something that used to take, 20, 30 minutes of like prep work now takes me like 3. Now it took me, I've been meal prepping kind of off and on for the better part of like, let's call it a decade. So it took me like the decade to figure out like the small iteration. But I think one of the cool things about these sort of processes is that it forces you to be efficient, right? If you're going to be doing 2 workouts a day, reading 10 pages of book, going to a 9 to 5 or whatever you have for an actual job. Let's not forget that this isn't like an all life consuming thing, right? You still have other things going on. Got to take care of the kids, got to do the other stuff, right? And so if you're on this regimen, you're sort of forced to find ways to be much more efficient with your time. And again, going back to once you reframe that and you're out of 75 hard, I mean, how amazing is it that you've picked up the skill of just being more efficient with your time. So even if you didn't pick up anything else, right? Even if you didn't pick up the diet thing or the workout or the water, even if you drop all those other things, but you just, maybe you're more efficient because you decided how, or you learned better how to answer emails. And so that was the carryover. I mean, there's so many different ways to win. Again, going back to the win, there's so many different ways to win here that I think the exciting part for me is sort of that iterative process of, changing little things and trying to pick up, those efficiency techniques. And arguably, I think that Andy probably started this challenge sort of with that as a baseline of yes, it's massively helpful to do these healthful things and the actual tasks. But I think the real win is the things that you carry forward and sort of the iterative changes that happen throughout the rest of your life.
Right. I love that. First, I want to take this back to the fact I didn't know that the app had Andy Frisella literally scolding you and making you feel bad about failing. I'm not going to lie to you. It is very petty, but it is hilarious. And I actually love that guy because of it, because it is just, it's funny, Second of all, I do want to highlight, the meal prepping. I want to change that narrative because for me, how I meal prep and how it's been successful for me is I've been able to pick, just like you said, one protein, pick one chicken, right? Or pick a whole bunch of chicken breasts, air fry them or whatever, and just keep it in your fridge, right? And then I get one carb, which is usually brown rice, or my favorite is sweet potato, and get a whole bunch of that. And then you air fry it, keep it in a container in your fridge. And then, when you go during the day, have a couple of meal prep containers, have a scale. And like you say, it's a routine. I know to measure out a cup of carbs and then 5 ounces of meat or whatever that is. And then add veggies in there and you go. And it's really easy. Sure, when it comes to Sundays, it does take maybe an hour or so, an hour or two. But if you consider how much time people take with regards to trying to find out where to eat, try to think of what the heck they want to eat, looking at a menu to see what they can actually serve for the menu, I would argue that you save significant amount of time and also stress when it comes to being able to meal prep instead of eating. And on top of that, for me, this is me. I hate wasting food. I hate wasting money. So with that being said, if I have a whole bunch of chicken breasts and a whole bunch of brown rice that's just cooked in the fridge, I'm more likely to eat that than I am of eating out. So change that. Now, I want to talk about the positive upsides of this. Oh yeah, real quick. If you want to add something, by all means.
Yeah, actually, I want to push back on that a little bit before we move on, because I think that honestly, the diet part and the meal prepping part is, I think it's bastardized a little bit in the sense that, so somebody like yourself or somebody like me, if I'm eating, so let's just use a really baseline easy, let's say you're having 4 meals a day, so you're having 28 meals. Let's say you have two additional whey protein shakes. So make it really easy math. Let's say you're having 30 meals a week, okay? If you're having 30 meals a week, let's say that you are comfortable with having shredded chicken with some light seasoning, a cup of brown rice, and a cup of veggies for 19 of those meals. Okay, a little bit more than half. That's probably about where I fall in. Where they're very, very simple, very basic. For someone like yourself or like me, who sort of trained the habit of eating the same basic thing a lot because of the payoff, because you're trying to hit metrics or macros, whatever it may be. I think that one of the things that trip people up in these sort of contests, or these sort of programs, I should say, is if that person is going from having wildly different foods for all 30 of those meals, and the answer to becoming more efficient is, okay, well, now you have to have the same meal 20 times a week, that's probably going to set that person up for failure. And so I think the reason I said it the way that I did is because if you're meal prepping in a way that's going to reliably provide success for someone that is not used to meal prepping in the way of, hey, I just get to, I'll just make 5 pounds of chicken and 3 pounds of rice and be good for the week, which is not a bad answer, by the way, because that's what I do, and that may be what you do, and that's totally fine. But for the person that's trying to go from, I know what healthy foods are, but I'm not on a strict diet, and then if they start 75 hard, if they have to pivot to, okay, well, now the easiest thing to do is spend an hour, to your point, prepping, pounds of vegetables and a ton of meat, they're probably going to be super generic. And again, that might be the reason. So then you might go and run through the drive-through and get a taco from Taco Bell because you want the, that difference, but that's going to lead you for failure. And so,
right.
What are your thoughts when I say that?
Well, I think first of all, it comes to mindset, right? And I think so. First two things. First of all is mindset, and the second of all being what your behaviors and your routine is already consists of. So first one being a mindset. If you view the 28 meals, the 30 meals during the week, I would say that by trying to already set your metric at 30 meals for the week, you're kind of setting yourself for an uphill battle. That requires some kind of subsidy in the beginning for you to actually be able to cling on and view it as a success. Now, for me, I do one of two things. First of all, kind of exactly what you said is I plan the day ahead. I know exactly when my workouts are going to be. I know when I'm going to be able to eat. I know when those intervals are going to be, and therefore what meals I want to have based off of those activities. With also that being said, I'm a human being. I understand that there are things like, let's say I end up waking up a little bit later than I normally would, right? I kind of push that back and adjust. So to go along with what I'm saying here is, I have for example, I have a couple of clients who do not cook. They always do is all they do is eat out, right? The first thing what I'd recommend for eating, if you want to start eating better or getting out of this thing, first of all, stop saying diet. Get rid of that word. First of all, diet is rooted in deprivation. Diet is also rooted in a temporary mindset. So if you want to be able to adjust to a lifestyle, it's an eating habit, or it's an eating behavior, it's an eating lifestyle. It's not a diet, right? That's the first thing you got to get out of. Second of all, I have to understand that, it's been proven over and over again, the more the food is not processed, the more whole the food is, the more nutrient dense that the food you're going to consume, the better that your results are going to be for your human body. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Yes, you can have this, artificial protein this, artificial that, but at the end of the day, actual whole foods are way better for you than anything else that you're going to eat. And then number 3, right? Just if you could start, for example, people that eat McDonald's, right? You have a burger, you have fries, you have the bun, those are still food. The buns are still carbs. The fries are still potatoes. The meat, it's still the meat. It's not the best quality, right? But if you could start reframing, instead of saying I'm having a hamburger, I'm having a protein, I'm having a carb, and I'm having some type of combination of both for a meal, that's where I would start shifting the mindset to, because even with, I've gone to McDonald's and definitely ordered a healthy breakfast. I've ordered eggs. I've ordered the oatmeal. I've ordered the fruit that's gone along with that. I've ordered it individually, right? But I understood what it is my body wanted to eat at that time with regards to protein, carbs, and anything else that's going along with it. So to make this long story long and to wrap it all up, it just all depends on the mindset that you have when it comes to eating. What is the purpose of your eating? Don't just eat aimlessly because you're hungry. Eat because you want your body to perform in a certain way. You want your mind to perform in a certain way. And that, in my opinion, starts with better whole foods.
Yeah, I it's interesting you frame it that way, because I have a hard time. Let me say it this way. I think that looking at the world in that way can lead people to believe that their own failings are purely internal. And what I mean by that is, mindset is not everything, in the sense that you have to look. Let me say it differently. Let me frame it in a much more positive way. I think it's really important. Oops, sorry. That's probably super loud. I think it's really important to set yourself up for success. think it's really important to create ways that your life becomes layups rather than trying to shoot 3-pointers. And what I mean by that is, if you focus on helping yourself and finding the cheat codes to make your own life more sustainable to what you're talking about, I think that's a really important concept. That's so, and that can play itself out in so many other ways. And I know we're kind of hurtling towards the end of time here, so I don't want to go too far in. But I think that it's just a really important concept that mindset is something, but I think the other side of creating ways to help yourself succeed are much more impactful. And then last thing, I have a hard time, and I'd love to talk to some nutritionists more about this. I have a hard time sort of wrangling with heard a lot of fitness experts and others talk about, if you're hitting, if you're going to McDonald's and you're like carbs are carbs and fats and protein, and I vehemently disagree with that. I mean, I think that the quality of carbs, fats, and proteins has been expounded upon plenty in scientific journals, etc. So I don't like, if you're having chicken breast and whatever at home and you have the same meal metrics wise in McDonald's, I don't think you're getting the same health benefit at all. And so I want to make sure that's if that's what you're saying, I want to talk about that a little bit.
I said that. I said that. I said that already, right? I already said that. Like on a macro level, yes, the food is still it has a macro weight to it, right? But I would completely agree that a 30-gram protein from a McDonald's burger is completely different than 30 grams of protein from a lean chicken breast. 100% agree with that. That's why I was talking about the quality isn't the same, but I'm talking about if you could start viewing food from a quality and a quantity basis, that is a way better start. And that is a way better approach than what people are already doing right now. So real quick, I kind of did want to end this on on things that I would like to change on 75 hard if I were to do it, right? And this is just me on what I would think would be more sustainable. And you kind of highlighted a couple of things before. So one of the first things I would do, obviously if there's anything you want to, please just give me feedback on things like that, because this is me not having done it, making it completely, based on how I think I am, on how I think I would approach this. So the very first thing I would do is I would break down the tasks individually. I think we talked about a lot. I would plan ahead, make sure instead of having the 2 45-minute workouts or whatever, I plan on right in the morning, plan on right in the afternoon. Instead of just following a diet, I would have my meals planned out beforehand. So I know exactly kind of what I'm eating. I would allow cheat meals. If there's one thing that people, I think, fail to realize is that we do have an emotional relationship with our food. Not to even mention the fact that, some people go home and spend time with their parents every Sunday morning breakfast, and eating that kind of breakfast is bringing up that kind of that nostalgia and that relationship you have with people. So I would allow that just to count for it, Number 3, do the morning. Do the morning workout. The evening, I kind of would say use that as I don't want to say a crutch, but use that if, let's say you happen to eat a little bit more carbs and a little bit more food during the day and you want to get a second workout in and burn that off, kind of like creating the mindset of being able to hold yourself accountable and adjusting if you end up going over. That's what I would do that. Number 4, I would definitely drink more water. I'll drink the water, except I would break it down per meal. I think you and I talked about this during your first time that you broke that 6-day or 5-day or 6 gallons of water. If instead of just thinking it's a whole gallon, kind of like what you said, set it up as layups instead of 3-pointers, break it down per meal. Like I have a whole glass of water per meal, something with your workout, something with both workouts. And then if you could level it out like that, it becomes a lot easier. I got 2 more here, 2 more. So allow audiobooks. I'm always on the road. I'm on the road like an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. Audiobooks, I think it's a way more beneficial. And then also allow compromise, right? Kind of like we talked about before. I know it's a zero-sum game with this, but how I would approach it is allow compromise for human things to happen. If I have a buddy that's going through some shit, he just wants someone to have a drink with, hey, I'll have a glass of whiskey with them or something. I'm not going to go overboard and go on a bender. Or I might, who knows? But you know what I mean? It's kind of allow those moments to have that space to give ourselves compromise when we can. So what do you think about that, Ben?
I think the things that you lined out just now would be fantastic iterations of this and fantastic changes if someone were trying to adopt some of these elements into their day-to-day life in perpetuity. I think what you just did was you basically took all of the teeth out of why this is a challenge and you made it easy. And that's not the point. The point is not to make this attainable. The point is not to make this, oh, well, this is just some small changes and like, oh, you can do it. The point of this is to be, it's right in the name, is to be hard. The point of this is to radically shift your life and to make those compromises. And so, no, I understand. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hold up. Yeah, real quick though. Wouldn't though. So this is my approach to everything, right? I think the reason why a lot of people don't even go after their goals is because they view it as to be completely hard to begin with, right? And they don't understand that they can just break down their goals into smaller goals and realize everything is attainable. Right. And so for me, yeah, I guess I'm with you on the sense that I've broken down to being easy, but that's just because for how I view my life and the things that I do for me, I have to view it impossibility, because if I view it to be impossible or completely hard, right, then just going against resistance 24/7 will, in my opinion, create resistance within me. That's just me.
Have you ever read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins?
No, I have not.
For anyone listening, and Alan, please do it yourself. Go out, buy Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. It will change your life in so many different ways. But the reason I bring that up is because, again, what you're talking about, I think, is modulating a challenge to become sustainable for your already limiting beliefs. I think that the human body and I think that the human mind is capable of exponentially more than we could ever fathom. The book, again, David speaks to that a lot in the book. That's really what the book is about. It's about changing your perception of what is possible. And I think that's the point of this challenge. The point of this challenge is not to look at it on paper before day one and be like, oh yeah, I can do that. That's easy. Let me go ahead and roll. The point of this challenge is to take the bull by the horns and radically change your life and change the habits that create your day-to-day. It's to radically change the way you frame the getting up, going to bed, planning your day. It's a way to break the chain of that normalcy that you're talking about. Think about it yourself, and I don't, we don't need to get on our soapbox here, but I'm sure there have been plenty of times in the gym where you've been repping something and, you've decided that you can push out 3 or 4 more reps and you've done that. And then, there's probably some times where you've been like, you know what, I need to push out 3 or 4 more, but you end up pushing out 6 or 7 more. And I think what you're talking about is once you start to feel resistance, just put the weight down. And I think that's the dangerous cycle down, right? If you look at a challenge like this and your takeaway is, oh, I can't do that, and you don't even try, that is failure, right? That is failure.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying here. And the one thing I'll just add to this is that I'm just more of a person where I see a program and I tailor things based on my personality, right? Based on, like, for example, right? Training for a physique competition, right? I had no idea what it was. Technically, if you break it down, it's eating the correct amount of macros, working out, and then all of a sudden get down to a lean point when you're on stage, right? But there's 1,000,003 different ways to get to that point. I think at the end of the day, the results is what matters. Is the thing that if you get yourself to a higher baseline, if you could get yourself doing things that you normally wouldn't be able to have done to begin with, I agreed with the mindset part, right? But I think, in all my ways of doing something for me, like all the achievements that I've been able to attain, it started with viewing it as possible. And then, if you like, for example, when I ran the marathon and I ran a physique competition, or I did a physique competition in the same month, people are like, oh my God, that's hard. I would agree that's challenging if you look at it just from the daunting task of doing a marathon and then just training for a bodybuilding competition. But because I was able to break those things down to a daily task to, hey, this next meal, as long as I eat it like this, it's going to get me closer to my goal, then it becomes, I think it's the reframing of seeing something once as impossible and then breaking that down to possible that keeps us going or that keeps me going, right? And this is my own internal motor. And being able to
But this challenge is not doing that, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I think this is a really important point. This challenge is not supposed to be how am I going to adopt this into day-to-day life, and how am I going to the point of the challenge in my mind is to take. Let me try to say this in a way that will make sense. I think what you're talking about is making it seem attainable and something that just anybody can pick up and like, oh, I can do 75 hard, or I can do this or that challenge. What I'm saying is someone with your mindset, you Alan, someone with your mindset and your way of looking at the world, this challenge may not really do anything for you because you already have the internal motor, you have those pieces, and you don't really necessarily find the value in being incredibly regimented to doing these things. In the same way, I would argue that, going back to what I said on the very beginning of the podcast, if there's someone that has a very sedentary lifestyle and is looking for some small adjustments to change that lifestyle to become more active, this is not the challenge for them. I think that the uniqueness of this challenge is for the folks that are fit enough that working out 14 times a week is not going to, break your knees or is not going to ruin your life. That the other elements are that it's, like I said, it's about sort of the process and the focus. I don't necessarily think that something like this is meant for someone that's looking for something that's attainable, to use your words. And I think it's not to talk about gatekeeping this, but it's to talk about this challenge is for the folks that are in, if there's a Venn diagram, like this is a very small segment of the Venn diagram that there are people that should want to do this challenge. And for someone like you, it may not be of value because you already have sort of some of the, or it sounds like most of the internal, hey, what are the things that I can pick up in terms of the planning and the sort of iterative process.
Okay, right? I see what you're saying. So let me just recapture everything to make sure I'm following you correctly, because I think I'm finally seeing what you're saying. So what you're saying is, if people don't already have the mindset of being able to find like those habits that are already better for them, if they already have none of these habits, then this might be beneficial, because at the very least, although they may not be able to sustain it, there will still be some aspects of this challenge that they'll be able to obtain and then apply later on. That's what you're saying. But someone who has done the work, who has this kind of a mindset, I get what you're saying, and I agree with you.
To bring that point home, by the way, yes, I think the important part here is something I've said on a couple of times ago when we spoke, and I may have actually said it earlier today, that this is the challenge by definition is zero sum, in the sense that you either fail or you succeed. If you have succeeded, that means that you did every single task for 75 days in a row. But going back to what I said before very early today, if you decide to define success as, I failed the challenge on day 28, but I learned these 16 ways to become more efficient in my day to day, that's a huge win. That's massive. So you didn't win the challenge. You didn't complete the challenge, but there are small changes, small, massive wins that can be had internal of a failure. And so again, going back to, you can fail something, but still pick up massive positives. It's the same thing. I mean, I tell like in my day-to-day in business world, I talk about it all the time, that the toughest lessons that I've learned, but the most valuable lessons by far are on the deals that I worked that didn't come together, or the opportunities that I saw but didn't take, or that didn't pan out the way that I thought. It's not supposed to be like, oh, the successes are the wins and the things that all went to perfectly to, again, going back to perfectly to plan, right? And so a part of this is you can plan and plan and plan and plan, but when you get punched in the mouth, what happens if you've got a job that, like you were talking about, if you've got a job that you're on the road all the time, and you want to pivot this challenge to, it would be easier for me to read an audio or listen to an audiobook because I'm on the road all the time. That's not to the core nature and sort of the integrity of this program. But you know what? If you start listening to even, let's call it 10 minutes, if you start listening to 10 minutes of podcasts or audiobooks that you weren't prior, and that's the thing that you pick up and you do that every single day for the rest of your life, I mean, like that's literally life changing. And so I think it's really important to kind of keep those sort of things in context.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I love how you summarize everything. And completely agree with you. Actually, completely. I think we're finally aligned on this in its entirety. Yeah, I agree. And no, I appreciate that. Well, Ben, you're on day. What is it? Day
yesterday was day
now?
4. I guess I was a day ahead in my brain. I thought I was on day 6. I'm only on day 5, but I'm on day 5. 70 to go.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, we are going to follow up with Ben here on a couple weeks later, seeing how things are going. Ben, I just want to thank you for your time on this. And I'm going to hit stop record, but you just stay on here for a little bit longer. Okay. All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoy your morning. Hope you guys enjoy this podcast. And anything, Ben? Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I appreciate you having me on.
Looking
forward to continuing the conversation, and at some point getting you on the hot seat, and maybe even coming onto a podcast of mine. But yeah, for folks listening, if you want to follow some more of the story about 75 Hard, some of the other things I've got going on in business, at _Ben Samuels on both Instagram and Twitter.
Thanks for listening. If you're interested in working with L&K and ShiftEQ, go to calendly.com/ShiftEQ or email him at shifteqllc@gmail.com. You can also visit the website at shifteq.org. Thanks for shifting in. Until next time, shift your soul, shift your body, shift your world.